Evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed Altaf. I'm the chair of the branch. I like the topic, breaching a bank, Mission Impossible style. And we do have our own sort of Tom Cruises talking today. This is going to be an exciting talk. It will give us a clear and concise overview of penetration testing and red teaming. Abdul and Ridwan will take us through a case study of a recent red team engagement carried out for a global bank. They will reveal the tactics, the techniques, and procedures used to infiltrate the bank's internal networks, which bypass not just one, but two world-renowned XDR solutions. So there you go. There's something to come there on that. Right. So in terms of the speakers, we've got Abdul. He's with over 14 years of experience in cybersecurity. Abdul is the head of cyber pre-sales at Zen0, helping clients identify and implement tailored security solutions to protect against real-world threat actors. We've got Ridwan, who is a security consultant at Zen0. He's got many certifications such as OSCP, CRTO, and CREST. Ridwan is deeply passionate about social engineering and also EDR bypass. And he's also highly community driven and spoken to many in many conferences as well. So I'm going to hand this over to Ridwan and Abdul. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So yeah, we're talking about breaching a bank. We're going to go through the step processes of how we did it, what we did, and when we did it. So how did we manage to go from zero to breaching a global bank? It is Mission Impossible style, but I'm not sure about the Tom Cruise comment earlier on, and that's definitely not Tom Cruise, unless he's lost all of his hair. But yeah, so just a quick disclaimer, when I say step by step, it's not the intricate details of how or what you can do to hack a bank. This is for educational purposes, that goes without saying. But if you are in the area where you want to know a little bit more about ethical hacking per se, penetration testing, red teaming, they're all essentially similar terms to kind of describe testing the limits. There are safe lab environments available, and we're available to provide that information to you as well. Yeah, it's definitely not, Mr. Robot's not 100% accurate in how this is done. So then to go on to the kind of agenda, really, if you can go on to the next slide, please. So yeah, introduction. So I'm Abs. I've definitely been in the industry long enough. My hair was a certain color when I first started, and it's slowly transitioning to another. Head of cyber pre-sales, helping clients kind of navigate the complexities of how to get more secure. I specialize in physical and social engineering, convincing people to essentially follow my instructions, and led a fair few strategic roles in the past as well. Over to Rid to give a quick intro on himself.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rid. I'm a senior red team consultant here at Zen0. I lead and execute red team offensive security assessments, and I specialize in adversary simulation, penetration test, and I also love to do malware development. And as Altaf said, I hold few credentials to my shoulders. So that's pretty much it about me. Over to you, Abs.
So the red team consists of a number of different people with various different skill sets. Some are very good at kind of the reverse code, the reverse engineering, the bypassing, etc. And others are very, very articulate in convincing people to do what they want. One of the team members who couldn't be here today is Zia. He's essentially keeps us honest. He's been in the industry longer than we have, Crest and Czech fellow, and essentially has the ideas in the background when he's overseeing some of the projects as well. Next slide, please, Rid. So we've gone through a bit of introduction. After my bit, we've got Rid kind of discussing the red team infrastructure, what was possible and how we did it, how we gained initial access, and then got to the privilege escalation and essentially the domain-wide compromise. We're all doing this for a purpose. The clients are essentially engaging with us. So the end result is to engage with the blue teams, the key takeaways, and how to kind of remediate against this, against the real world threat actors. And of course, there'll be a chance to ask any questions should you have any. So with Zen Zero, we're a global organization. We've got offices all across the UK, South Africa, and beyond. We're a B Corp and being named just, I think, last week in the Sunday Times top 100 tech companies, won a fair few Deloitte awards as well for fastest growing company. And importantly, we also have CREST accredited member status, a number of Microsoft certifications, and cyber scheme sponsors. We love giving back to the community as well as the industry as well. So just a very, very quick overview of pen testing versus red teaming. So over to the next one, please, Rid. So you might have heard of penetration testing before, but maybe not so much on the red teaming side. They are starkly different assessments, and overall, they can be, I would say, described as one being very much of what's in scope, and the other is what's not in scope. So anything else not mentioned in the not in scope in red teaming, everything's fair game. So we are in a red team simulating real world threat actors, whereas what you may be used to, a penetration test, is very much finding the vulnerabilities. And with a red team, it's more broad and flexible, where with a pen test is narrow, this is in scope and nothing else. And if you test anything else that's not in scope, then you're actually breaching the agreements in place. With the red team approach is very much stealth. It can be months at a time. We're on an engagement trying to identify ways of getting in, where with a pen test, we are essentially looking at something for a couple of days or perhaps a week or maximum a month. With the red team is very much on a focus of evading and detecting whether the response capabilities within an organization is up to par. Whereas with the pen testing, it's finding the vulnerabilities. It's like a bull in a china shop. We are essentially identifying as many vulnerabilities as we can in a limited time. And so everyone is aware of the engagement. But with the red team, not so much. So red team is mimicking real world threats, and the pen testers are exploiting known vulnerabilities. So the stark difference there, with a pen test, you don't have enough time to find 0 days per se, but with a red team, you're equipped with that when you're doing the assessment. So reporting with red team is very much an attack narrative of how we got from 0 to complete domain-wide compromise without being detected, and time-stamped approach to it. With a pen test is very much of how they can how the teams can essentially fix the vulnerabilities we identified, with kind of an open book of everything that needs to be fixed. We are essentially meeting regulatory compliance with a pen test. Some people are doing it for improvements of security postures, but more often than not, if you really want to identify the way your company can get breached, then it's a red team, because it improves the resilience and tests whether your measures in place are adequate. Over to you, Rid.
Thank you very much, Abs. So we'll be starting with what we did to set up our infrastructure and how we did it. So for a red team assessment to go well and to ensure that the operational security is in place and you're not getting detected by the blue team, you need the right tooling, and you have to set it up way earlier than the assessment starts. So we had a couple of command and control frameworks with one redirectory each, hosted in AWS and GCP. And we also had multiple domains procured and legitimate SSL certs installed, just to make sure we blend in as a legitimate entity if we are hosting any other websites that might be malicious, just to us, not to anybody else out there in the internet. We also had one phishing server with modifications made to it, just to avoid signatures that's out there, or there might be some web filters which would pick up the phishing server signature, so that we always wanted to avoid it. So we custom made existing open source GoPhish server, and we masqueraded it behind the IP rotation framework that's out there called Mailgun. And as I said before, we procured 15 plus domains which were related or looks like the bank's domains or the websites the employees of the bank are interacting with. We knew what type of websites or applications the bank employees were using. With that info, we went on and registered the lookalike domains mimicking those applications. To get started with the mission briefing, a little bit of history here. The bank's security control systems and devices are assessed every 6 months, and also they understand themselves to have a really good security awareness program implemented. They get regular phishing tests, phishing videos, and all sorts of simulated phishing programs that's out there. They have all that in their bucket. So this bank had a global presence, having operations around the world, and they were headquartered here in the UK and were having 4,000 plus employees. So assessment duration was about 80 days spread across a 6-month period of time. However, we reached our goal much earlier than that. So coming to the objective, initially, we had one objective, that is to breach the bank, gain access to their internal systems, and we also had another set of objectives once we reached our initial objective. That's we gain access. So I'll be talking about in the upcoming slides. So first things first, we started the assessment as usual with a lot of reconnaissance, open source intelligence, and mapping out the entire attack surface of the bank and its asset. We were able to gather usernames, valid emails, VPN endpoints, breach credentials, and many more. This specific recon part is where we spent a great deal of time digging through as much information as possible in terms of their URLs, the news, the ongoing events of the organizations. We were looking at we were looking to get any information on their pension schemes, if we could get any information on their suppliers. We analyzed the news, we scoured through all of the procurement sites that's out there just to see if they have any arrangements with third parties so that we could facilitate a supply chain attack. So with all this information, we essentially created a dossier of all the information we gathered, and we put it in a separate spreadsheet, which was very organized, separate tabs, because what we know from our previous experience is that you need all of this information in place and readily available in case if you're going to pivot to a social engineering element, and if you're trying to phish or phone call someone in the organization to retrieve sensitive information, then you need all of this in place. But that being said, we also looked at all of the assets that's been externally hosted, that's internet accessible, and the more enumeration we did, the clearer it became to us that their external network was heavily protected. I would also say it was fortified, to be honest, and there were no vulnerabilities or misconfigurations that we could leverage to gain initial access. But there was one old router in Europe that looked interesting, but it didn't turn out to give us what we were expecting later on. So since we weren't getting hold of any vulnerabilities or misconfigurations, we pivoted to the social engineering part, where we started to send a number of phishing campaigns, which iterated each time, and we didn't get any luck, and we weren't sure what was happening in the background, and we weren't sure if the emails were getting blocked or if it's being in junk. And we started to lower the number of emails that we sent. Initially, we started to send 50, then we came down to a number of 20 to 30. So even that didn't give us out any results. So we started to target specific individuals, and we started to profile them on their social media that we built up. But still, we tailored specific scenarios to specific individuals and send out email just to see if they are clicking on it or if they are browsing through the malicious link that we sent, but we weren't getting any traction at all. So once we had a series of campaigns, we thought to ourselves, okay, let's pivot from this scenario. Let's try a combination of email phishing and wishing. Wishing is where you phone call or try to interact with the employee through a phone call or a Teams number. So usually most of the red teams that's out there would shy away from this scenario, but we see that as one of the best way to infiltrate an organization. because you actually build rapport and relationship with the target you are interacting with, and there's a high chance of success in that case. So we came up with a scenario saying there are some documents that needs to be signed, and we didn't send any malicious link. But in the footer, we added a Skype number that we procured, saying that if the link doesn't work, call to this number. And this specific number, we did a bit of recon, as I told earlier in the first stage. We looked at what and how does their original help desk number looks like. So we tried to match as many numbers as possible. And if you are an employee of the bank and interacting with the original help desk on a daily basis, you would just look at the first 2 digits or the last 3 digits of the help desk. And if you're getting a call, you would just be like, okay, I recognize this. And you would just ring up or pick up the call. So that's what we thought to ourselves. And to our luck, we were able to match the last 3 digits of the original help desk in our Skype number. So once we put up the scenario on the and bought the Skype number, we sent out the emails again for about 80 to 88 recipients. So we were waiting there for more than a couple of days, and we weren't getting any traction. And suddenly, I think it was 3 a.m. on a Thursday morning, a chap, let's call the guy John. It wasn't his original name, but just so a chap called, and he was at the station with his laptop trying to open the link we sent him. He was so desperate, and the scenario was convincing enough to believe it was an actual document. And apps from our team picked up the call and goes, this is Acme Bank's help desk. How can I help you today? So John explained the situation, and apps goes on replying to him. We know what you're talking about because we have been having that issues a lot today. If you could please hold on a minute, we would give you a new link, and you should be able to access your document. So we in the background, our team, we generated a new malicious link with all the phishing setup, and we sent out to Abs. Abs verbally delivered it to John. And once John entered his, once John browsed through the URL through his corporate laptop, it was getting blocked. And we thought to ourselves, so this might be because we have already used this domain. So let's try it with another domain that we have procured recently. So we asked John to hold on and said that we are having an issue on our end. We'll call you back in a while. So after we created a new domain and a new malicious URL, we called John again. We sent John the URL, and he goes on and he tries again. And even this time, it doesn't work. And we thought to ourselves, okay, something's wrong. And there are some other really good security controls in place that's not allowing any URLs other than they know. So we thought, let's try another scenario. So we asked John to wait for a while, and we'll, as giving the same excuses, we told him we'll call you in a while. After we thought to ourselves and said, okay, let's not ask him to enter it in his corporate laptop, but in his mobile device. So once we set up this scenario, we called him back. But this time, John didn't pick up. And we weren't getting any reply call as well. We actually thought this was the end. And I was literally like Tony Stark on the GIF. I was so frustrated because we have spent 2 to 3 months of time without sleep. So this was our only way in. But once that's done, we started to brainstorm and see what other ways we could do. But John called us back after 30 minutes. And this guy was munching food on his mouth. And I think he was probably making himself a sandwich. So this time we sent out the URL to him verbally and said that, can you please use your mobile device because we are having issues in the server. Without any hesitation, John goes on, browses the URL through his mobile device, and this time the URL is accessible, and he goes on to enter his credentials, his M365 code, and once he dropped it, in the background, we captured it, we got hold of his credentials, we got hold of his authenticator app code, and also coming back to the recon part, we saw that there were a few websites mentioning RSA pin code and RSA being in use in the organization. So we thought also this is a good opportunity to ask him because this might come in use in the later part of the attack. So Abs goes on and asks him the RSA pin code. John paused for a bit, but again, he gave it out. He didn't think that's a sensitive information. So once we had all the information that we need to log into his M365 account, we added our Zen0's Authenticator app to his M365 account, and we finally got access to his Microsoft environment. So once we logged into M365, we had a new attack surface. We had a whole lot of data in front of us. We had access to departmental SharePoint slides, technical documents, software and hardware data, Excel files containing credentials, VPN user guides, and we also had 14,000 plus usernames from Azure, because somehow this specific user had Azure access as well, rather than just M365. And we also looked at John's personal and travel details. You might ask me, why did you guys look at his personal details? I'll come back to that in the upcoming slides. So we profiled John as much as possible, and we knew that at some point we have to impersonate him to gain access. And to be fair, we were literally talking about, like, we really needed to mimic John. We were literally walking, eating, and even talking like John for 2 weeks. Also, I believe we knew more than John than he did about himself. We knew his employee ID, his seat number, which office he works from. We even knew his dog's pet name. So another fun fact during the assessment was John calls us back, and we thought we were being caught and he suspects us, but he called us back for a legitimate query. And we actually proxied his legitimate query to the original help desk and sorted out for John. After that, John became our best mate. And so if we had everything, what was stopping you? You might ask. And we were also having problems. The very first one was John was an absolute workaholic. He never logs out. And this guy was sending emails and Teams messages at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning. If I'm an employee at the bank and I don't do any IT related stuff, I'll just go back home after 5 p.m. and sleep. So also, we needed a RSA token code, which we didn't have. We had the PIN code, but we didn't have the token code for the VPN authentication. So we went all the way back to John's emails to the date which he joined the organization, and we found one token code, but it was one-time use only, and it was expired long back. So we went on to see how we could reset the token code, and we emailed IT help desk for a new RSA, and we probed and did a recon call on the original help desk to see how the process looks like for resetting the RSA token. So the process would eventually be like, if you're resetting the token, that would invalidate the current installation, which means that John wouldn't be able to access his VPN services anymore. Only us, only the red team could access it. So we thought to ourselves, and we had an entire dossier of the information of what John's going to do and where he's going to be in the next few weeks. And this guy had left his flight details, and he was about to leave the country for a vacation after a week. So, and that was our opportunity to gain initial access. So we put up a screen on the office, and we put up flight radar in it, put John's flight number, PNR number, and everything. We got to know where he's going and what time he's going to board, and we had all that information in place. John was about to take off for a 3-hour flight. When he's up on the sky, he wouldn't be having access to his laptop. He wouldn't be having access to his mobile number. Even if he wanted to attend a call from a CEO, he couldn't, literally. So we thought this is the only way that we might be able to reset the token. So once we saw that the flight took off in the flight radar, we immediately called the help desk. We asked for RSA token reset, and it was successful. The original help desk asked for a few clarification questions just to see if we are John, who we are claiming to be, but we had all the information about John. So we got in through like it was a breeze for us. And we received the QR code on John's email from help desk, and we also got a follow-up email from the help desk saying that your RSA token code is reset, but we deleted it so that John couldn't notice that. And with our malicious email that we had, we sent out RSA token access extended email to John's email ID itself, because when he lands and opens up, he would see and he would have the new QR code and he wouldn't be having any problem to access the VPN services. So with this much recon done and attacks been successful, we thought to ourselves we shouldn't get caught. So that's why we sent the email out, and John did not contact the IT support ever again. So once John is still in the flight, we have 2-hour window. So after getting the RSA token, we tried to log in into the production VPN. So to do that, before we created a new Azure Windows VM and we authenticated to the VPN service, but authentication was successful. Compliance checks failed on the device, which means that we own a device that's been managed by the bank. So we thought to ourselves, okay, let's not try over and over again, because that might cause some alerts in the SOC dashboard. So we thought to ourselves, and we went back to the spreadsheet that we had, and we had a list of all the assets that's hosted externally. In there, they had few other VPN endpoints as well. So we looked at what might be interesting, and there was one VPN called Test VPN. We tried to access it. The authentication was successful, but there was no device compliance enforced on this specific VPN. With that being said, we gained a foothold on their internal network. However, we got access to the VPN, but no other critical servers were accessible from that place. Only their Citrix environment was accessible. So once we got initial access to the VPN service, we contacted the bank, said, look, we have got access now, so we could proceed. And they came up with another improvised goal set. So they told us, okay, you've got access. You might be able to log into Citrix as well, because you already have the credentials of John. And this time, the goal sets were different. We didn't have one, but we had 5. We have to bypass the XDRs installed there. We have to escalate our privileges from a standard user to a domain admin. We have to compromise their entire domain. We also had to monitor bank communications by compromising their Exchange servers. Also, they had few cloud applications which held all of the sensitive information that the bank holds very dear to. So that was also one of the objectives, that we gain access to their cloud applications. So once we got access to VPN, we pivoted to Citrix environment and we got access. And from Citrix, we were able to reach all of their critical servers. We did enumeration from an active perspective. The one thing that we noticed and a misconfiguration is that PowerShell was enabled, and it shouldn't be standard. It shouldn't be enabled for everyone in the organization. Since John wasn't from IT, it should be disabled by default, but it wasn't. With PowerShell, we enumerated all of the critical servers that's out there. We found out the domain had 40 plus domain controllers. There were ESXi logins, file shares, and we identified what are the EDR and XDR agents running on the services or on all the systems. We also identified a handful of misconfigurations. Also, one important fact, and which was surprising to us as well, was that John had access to 18 terabytes of storage files, which was hosted in a share. And this specific file share had sensitive information like bank documents, vulnerability reports, passwords, you name it. It had everything. So coming to what are all the misconfigurations we did identify. So we initially started with enumerating what are all the service accounts that we might be able to facilitate a Kerberoastable attack. So we identified there were 50 plus service accounts which can be Kerberoastable, and we particularly focused on 2 service accounts which were part of admin groups, a few data integration servers. And let's name the 2 accounts as data service and transfer service. We also identified there was one critical server which had unconstrained delegation set, which means that if you gain access or admin access to that specific server, then you might be able to escalate your privileges to domain admin and compromise the entire domain. Also, we didn't have a path to reach out to or gain admin access to the critical server. So we found out and traced back who has access, and we found out that a user called Bob had generic write privileges over that specific system, and we also laid out an attack map and say that, look, we have to somehow get Bob's credential. So in conclusion, 2 service accounts need to be curb roasted, and we needed a valid attack path to reach Bob. So as I said before, we had 2 specific attack paths. Sorry, we had 3. One is that gain access to Bob and abuse generic write privileges on the unconstrained delegation system and escalate your privileges to domain admin, or use Bob's account to abuse ACL groups because Bob had self and password reset privileges on few of the critical groups that's out there in the domain. And by doing that, we could access the exchange servers, and one of the exchange servers had generic write on domain controller again. So we were thinking to ourselves, okay, this might be a good attack path. And on the background, we also thought to ourselves, we have a whole amount of access to a share which has 18 terabytes. We would definitely find some credentials out there. So in the background, we wrote a script. We ran it over a period of 15 days to see if we are getting any credentials from any of the files that's in the share. And we thought to ourselves, okay, if we found a password or a root password for any of the ESXi servers, then we might be able to log into the domain controller and compromise it directly and exfiltrate the data as well. So this was all done before the exploitation. We didn't run any intrusive commands. We went by native commands to enumerate all the systems that's out there. We didn't install any malicious script. We didn't do anything malicious because we knew that EDRs were present there, and CrowdStrike, Falcon, and Felix are not some open source EDRs. They are world renowned, and anything we do that will get picked up. So to bypass that, we created a test environment. We replicated the environment as much as we could. We bought the CrowdStrike Falcon and Felix. We hosted it in our own virtual machines, and every commands and possible enumeration techniques that might be out there and that we wanted to try, we tried it out first in the VM that we had, and we tried it out next on the actual Citrix environment. We also noticed that one living off the land technique didn't raise any alerts in our environment, but that didn't go well. That didn't work when we tried it out because we didn't have access to SSH. Also, since the living off the land technique failed, we thought that, okay, the only way is just to create a new malware that would evade both the EDRs. So we spent a great deal of time, at least 4 to 7 days, to do research and come up with a malware, and we essentially created it. And we tried it out in our system, in our VMs, which we had CrowdStrike and Relix running, and we were able to bypass it. So the techniques that we followed to bypass CrowdStrike Falcon and Relix on the same device is that we had 6 different types of techniques implemented in our malware. So we bypass static analysis, we bypass runtime, behavioral, user land hooks, process integrity, and we also masqueraded our specific malware as a browser, and it connected over HTTPS with a legitimate SSL cert. Also to note that this was a configurational bypass, and a bypass to touch or dump LSAS process was not feasible at the given time frame. So we just wanted a reverse connection back to our C2 system, because from there we might be able to run a whole set of tools that we need. So before deploying the malware in the actual environment, we tested out in our local environment which we had. And as you can see, this is on the right, you have the malware running. On the left, you have both the sensors installed, and it didn't raise any alerts. So this is the test beacon that we got back, and we confirmed that if the access is stable, and we ran some commands from our command and control framework, and we found out that it's working fine. So once we finalized and we were sure, and we came in from an authoritative perspective, and we dropped the actual malware in the environment. For the first 8 minutes, we didn't get any response. We actually thought to ourselves, maybe there might be some proxying that's going on. That's why we are not getting the call back from the actual Citrix environment. So we tried it again, and after 5 minutes, we got a beacon in, and that itself was an achievement for us. So once we got the access, we initiated a SOX proxy and tunneled the traffic all the way through the bank's network, and we were accessing the bank's environment from our own Kali VM. So once we got the access, we started to facilitate the curb roasting attack, and we got hashes of 2 service accounts that I named before, and we gave into the cracking softwares and the cracking servers that we use. And out of the 2 hashes, only 1 hash was cracked, and we got the plain text password of that specific service account. So once that's done, we used the service account to gain lateral movement on multiple data integration service, and those servers were granted admin privileges for the specific data service account. Although the service account was a part of deny logon locally and deny remote logon, we used enter PS session to gain remote access, because enter PS session acts from a WMI protocol perspective, so that didn't raise any alerts. We also enumerated a couple of servers. We didn't want to fingerprint all the servers we had access, but we enumerated just 2, and we got a specific folder and a specific script which had the credentials of Bob. And the best part is we didn't have any alerts so far, and we moved on to the next steps. So now we already have 3 attack paths. So we also have the credential of Bob. So we could either we could facilitate the delegation attack or abusing groups, or remember, we also had another attack, which we had a script running for looking at the credentials. After 15 days, the script gave out a credential, which was an Excel sheet for the root user of the ESXi login. So this specific root user had access to domain controllers hosted there. And there were a few other missions, and there were multiple servers, and there were 2 domain controllers hosted in the vSphere. And we logged into the vSphere as the root user. We powered off one of the domain controllers and retrieved the VMDK file and copied to a share folder. And before we did this, we had a talk within ourselves and said to ourselves, okay, let's gonna do that. What's the problematic part of it? What's gonna go wrong? So one thing is that they might be interrupted or the business operations could halt. So for that case, we reached out to the point of contact saying that, see, here we have this attack path and this is the best way to do it. And we got the approval from them before doing it. And they said, oh, it's all green light. You can go all guns blazing in. Also, from a technical perspective, if you just switch off a DC, that would just look like a network event, not like a security incident or a security event. So all the SOC team would have been seeing if we switched off a DC is that a blip for 3 minutes, and all it took was just 3 minutes for us to retrieve the VMDK file, and we copied it to the share folder. So coming to the data exfiltration part, we noticed there were web filters were in place and restricting access to uncategorized website, but also it allowed new websites 24 hours of time before being permanently blocked, and that itself is a misconfiguration inherently. So we hosted a website called acme.finance with OnCloud, and we exfiltrated the VMDK file without any alerts, and that's how we compromised an entire bank and exfiltrated their data. So for every red team and for every attack that we do, it is only as good as how they build up their detection mechanisms. And for every red team that's outgoing there, the only purpose is to make the blue team better. So the few key takeaways that we could learn from this talk today is that configure your EDRs and XDRs with better detection settings, implement advanced IOC with event-based rules, not just with security-related rules. And if you know that some servers are critical for you and you hold it very much dear to your heart, then configure alerts. Even if there's a small change that's happening or someone who's supposed to log into the server is logging in, then you should configure it to give you out alerts. Also, implement conditional access policies such as impossible logon, geo restrictions, so that you know that someone else is not trying to impersonate someone from your organization. Last but not least, provide security awareness training to all of your employees and take it much more seriously, and conduct adversary simulation and red team exercise to test the resilience. So that's pretty much it for the talk. If you guys have any questions, please please feel free to ask. We'll be happy to answer.
That was very interesting, Ridwan. Thank you. Oh my gosh, all it took is one person, right?
Yeah.
All it
Yeah.
took is just the one to gain access, and that were you lucky?
Oh, a little bit. It's always a little bit of luck, right? Absolutely. We targeted that particular individual from within the bank. So yeah, I think our research done as well. So that's the main thing. That, and look, there's not enough time to go through every facet of these attacks, but the team does an incredible job of identifying ways in. We have to have a backup plan. We know what technology they're using when we're in. We need to have everything ready to go for various different environments. And so a little bit of luck definitely helps. But if this particular individual had done their training and listened, and it's always that fact, we've been doing this collectively for more years than I could remember. And usually the way in is the human element. Why would I spend all of my time attacking these really, really sophisticated, technical, complex networks when I can just ask someone to hold the door open for me?
Yes, I mean, what I meant by luck here is that, while you need some luck anyway, is that, there's someone out there who is going to help you, right? In this sense, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if it wasn't for that particular individual, maybe we would have found another way in. When you're focusing on the individuals themselves, you're very much indebted to getting in via that method. But technically, they had some issues. Rid mentioned that router in Europe somewhere as well that had some fundamental issues. But from a red team perspective, we are mimicking an attacker. So they will go after the easiest way in rather than going after something that will give them the most praise, if that makes sense.
Got it. Thank you. There's a question from Nick here. It strikes me that organizations having so many services hosted next year is a big risk. How does an employee distinguish legitimate organizations from hackers?
Well, to be honest, it's getting harder and harder. None of us are safe from that regard, and it's not scaremongering, it's just reality. I myself was targeted by someone that I sent a document to a few months ago, and I was really looking forward to working with them. They had some cool products that we wanted to give a go at, but something kicked in at the back of my mind. That doesn't seem right. Why is it taken all the way from September till now for him to get back to me? So I contacted them, and unfortunately their account had been compromised, and it was just a proliferation of that I was targeted next. So my security knowledge kept me safe in that regard. How does an employee distinguish? I mean, this is a never-ending thing. We are always one step behind the criminals, and we are trying our best to replicate them as much as possible. But there are way too many distractions out there. People are trying to do things too quickly, and my advice to most is take your time. It's nothing's that urgent that you have to click there and there, or you have to ring that number straight away. It's ringing on a Sunday, no one's expecting that of you. You don't need to call on a Sunday to get that email looked at. You can raise a ticket. Use a legitimate ways of contacting IT rather than a number in an email. If you know the process and it is to use a ticketing system to raise a call request, then do that. That should be the way to do it. That's probably the more foolproof way of doing so rather than ringing a number. that's coming through in an email that you may or may not recognize.
Yes, because they present the urgency and the priority and the importance. So it's like stepping back and then giving a bit of breather before you actually act on it, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, we see this in most organizations. People prioritize their email responses, their message responses based on the person that's making that request. Why not do the same with external parties? If the party is saying that there's a problem with releasing a payslip or something similar, why not speak to HR directly? It adds a level of complexity and a delay to the process, but it's a surefire way of not falling for an email or a phone call. I received a phone call the other day and I said, look, I'm sorry, I'm out and about at the moment. I'll have to call you back.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was true, absolutely was true. But also at the same time, he gave me that breathing space to say, right, I'm going to go to the actual website. I'm going to go to Google, any other search engine, get the legitimate number and say, have you called me from this? And oh yeah, that was, Susan from so-and-so department, and they did call you. We'll ask them to give you a call back. And then there's a level of validity there rather than kind of answering the question there. Take your time is
Yes.
my answer.
There's a question here. Can you share what happened? Sorry. Would you say the VPN is the most vulnerable edge device for north-south attacks?
So I think we gave it in this example here. It depends on how it's configured. So if you're talking about the off-the-shelf VPNs that you get from app stores, etc., I mean, I can't recommend those. You are essentially moving your network traffic to someone else's exchange or someone else's area. And it's not really the full surefire way of doing so. And yes, from a corporate VPN perspective, it has to be configured correctly. We're finding a lot of the VPNs are done so incorrectly. In this example, we had a test VPN. If it was just that initial access that we identified in that cloud environment, then it would have been a pertinent vulnerability. Absolutely, security awareness has failed fundamentally. But from that point onwards, we had no internal access. But we found a test VPN where it essentially allowed us access from a non-compliant device, and the rest is history. So if the VPN is configured correctly, it's using multiple stages of authentication, then yes, I think it is a better. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the most securest way, but absolutely, anything to make our lives harder. If that test VPN didn't exist and we were doing the standard corporate VPN, logging in with this user's compromised credentials, then we would be stuck at that point and wouldn't be able to go any further. Sorry, Andrew, you have your hand up. I've noticed you switch on your camera a few times. Take the center stage.
This is amazing. You blow my mind about how you've gone through. I mean, that's absolutely
I love
incredible.
it. This is a big blown you by. I love that. I love that. We are trying to help people get more secure.
But that's the thing. I mean, this just makes me wonder how the hell can we get secure? Because it seems like every time, like, multiple layers of security and stuff. But if you get in through the little bits each time,
assistance, absolutely,
and you get through the bit and you get through the bit,
yeah.
How can we ever be secure?
So the elemental approach here is that team part, and the ego stays at the door. When I was on the phone call with the user, I had the red team. I mean, there's a lot of information that we can't cover in 40 minutes. So just to unravel it a little bit further, when we were on the call, and it was me, and one of my skills is to talk, but also I don't know sometimes when to stop talking. So I have the team in my ear. We have experts from various different regards. Ridwan is absolutely amazing at what he does. I couldn't do what he does. But we have one individual who's the IDS person. And all they do is that stern figure that is judgmental. And they stand there and say, have you thought of this? They have no pressure. There's no responsibilities other than finding things that I'm not seeing. Remember, we've tried this for months. It's on me. It's absolutely on me to convince this individual to hand me his prized possessions, his username and password. Without that, it's over. And if I fumble and I don't convince this particular individual, it's all over. Next. Okay, the team will get over it, but I will never be able to let that down. My job is very clear. I need to convince the person I am who they expect to be. But at the point where they were typing the link into their laptop, there's a lot of pressure. I'm human. And it wasn't working. We thought it was email filters. It wasn't just email, it was their web filters that were essentially initiating. Am I right? It's like that Captain American moment. Abs, get him to type it into his
So
phone.
that is the human element in the end. That's
Both, in both regards, you
yeah.
essentially replicate. And these teams that are doing this, or I say they're a team, they are unethical, they're actual real world threat actors. They are working in tandem with each other. They're working in more flexibility and more freedom. They don't have the same confines that we have. We can't actually
Of course.
to break windows. We have the code of conduct to kind of to abide by the
yeah.
scope that the client has dictated, but also at the same time, I'm panicking. On the face of it, inside I look cool as a cucumber, but inside, there's that kind of human emotion that I'm feeling as well. So with my team in the background saying, Abs, get him to type it into his phone, that tells me straight away that the phone has no such compliance requirements, one, and two, he's responded saying, that's my personal phone. Should I really be typing this link into my personal phone?
Right. Yeah.
And I can think on my feet. So straight away, it's do you not use your personal phone for multi-factor authentication? You use Microsoft. Why not this? I'm IT, I'm customer service. I'm absolutely telling you the right. Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, look, I don't see your username and password. It's got a padlock. When you go to the link, have a look. John, go to the link. John's gone to the link. Oh yeah, you're right. It does have a padlock. Puts his username and password in. I've got that username and password. We've essentially put them on hold. We've then, continued the ruse of the attack.
So smart.
Thank you. So there's a question here on how do you safeguard employees that travel and unusual times and sort of non-standard devices as well?
Yeah, amazing question. So there's there's no one shoe that fits all. The one that definitely works is depending on your licensing. If you take Microsoft for example, and conditional access, and I was this happened to me as well, in a legitimate case where I was traveling for a project over to the Channel Islands, and straight away I was logged out of my account. I couldn't get in because it wasn't on the allowed list of places or regions to be logged in from. And so I had to somehow find a way of contacting the admin on our side to say, look, I can't log in. I was legitimately trying to get to my email. So it does work. So from an attacker's point of view, if you've got conditional access, you've got regional kind of access in place, then that would be one way of stopping that attack. I think is it a twofold question? Non-standard devices.
Yeah.
This is again another interesting one. Got some Mohammed. You didn't tell me that I'll have the hardest questions ever. So non-standard devices. But this is the thing, right? So that VPN. So we're just going back to that VPN as an example. The test VPN, ironically, made for testing purposes, that should have followed process and switched off, were not in use, did not have compliant device capability on there, whereas the corporate VPN did. Because of that test VPN we were in, and the corporate VPN would have stopped us. So non-standard devices, and if you're talking about BYOD, that's a completely different ballgame. If we're looking at the Cyber Essentials standard, for example, as an easy way of kind of comparing it, even where you have a BYOD policy, if you look at the intricate ways of actually still being able to access your environment with a BYOD policy, you might as well have that device on your MDM. So non-standard devices, in my opinion, based on what we have just proven, it should be restricted.
Great. It says here, I mean, this is in this scenario, did sort of this person, John, try to connect after he reached his destination, and it would have failed?
Yeah, so he made mistakes, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, we are humans. We are going to make mistakes. That's goes without saying. I make mistakes all the time, constantly, and I am hard on myself when I do. Psychologically, this is a very interesting area of what happens to John. You know, we don't reveal names so much. I mean, at the end of the day, the client is procuring this service. We essentially say there's a demographic issue here for this particular department, for this particular area. You should fix that. You know, if they press too much and reveal names, we have to have agreements in place, because, you know, ultimately I made a career of being ethical, of being an ethical hacker. You know, I'm not sure how I would live with myself if every time someone clicked on my link, I have 100% success rate. I mean, I know I sound very egotistic here, but I'm just presenting facts. There's no one building that I haven't been able to compromise. And so if every time I compromise something or someone clicked on my link, they would lose their job, then I don't think there'd be enough clients out there for me to, or for our team or other people just like us all around the world, to be able to test. So there are safeguards in place, and it's just an opportunity for improvement. Remember, we are not the actual bad people. We are replicating them. It's the same as having a pat tester, someone coming in to check your outlets. You wouldn't ring your electrician and fire them straight away to say after a year of use the outlet needs to be replaced. Users need to be trained on a constant basis, and it's not just from an online users security awareness perspective. It's also having people like us come in and speak about the real ramifications of what happens when a link is clicked. In fact, future sessions we might toy with that idea as well.
Good, great. I mean, just one final one. I mean, yes, we are probably the weakest link, and if there's one quick example that you would say or take away that an employee should be doing to protect him or herself and the organization, what should they do?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's not even a technical remediation. It's more of the fact of take your time. I know we're all under pressure. We have so many meetings back to back. Sometimes we take work to work with us home. You know, sometimes a lot of people with the camera on, I can tell the lines are blurred of where's work and where is home. Take your time.
No,
take
great.
Your time.
Thank you, Abdul, and thank you, Ridwan, for that really good, very insightful way of cracking that bank. You know, I think it's given us all knowledge of and awareness of what we should probably do, protecting ourselves, our organizations as well. So great talk, and thank you everyone for attending. I'm going to now close this talk.